Welcome to Archery Country Podcast. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Archery Country Podcast. This is Wade as we are sitting in the Waite Park location. I got Jake with me along with Brandon in the studio. And we're talking to a gentleman, podcaster going in every direction that we could possibly imagine. And today is going to be one that we love to talk about because we're going to relive some awesome hunts. We're talking with a gentleman from Alexandria, Minnesota, who is he's famous. He's been an awesome mentor. He's killed almost every big game animal and done a lot of things with a stick and a string. And we're glad to have him on. Without further ado, Mr. Mark Watkins. How you doing, Mark?
Hey, I'm doing great.
We're glad that you could be on. And as we start most of our podcasts when we have a guest of your caliber, we kind of ask you for a little history, more or less. You know, we're assuming that you started young, but if you'd give us just your life story in a summary, I guess, of your archery career and your hunting career.
Yeah. Well, as a kid growing up in the suburbs of Chicago, there was a field of about 200 acres, and that was my quote-unquote wilderness to explore up until maybe I was 13. And the first animal I was ever fortunate enough to take with a bow and arrow was at age 6 was a ground squirrel, and I flushed him out of the hole with a garden hose. So I don't know how sporting that was, but that kind of lit the fire. And then receiving my father subscribed to Field and Stream and Outdoor Life, and I remember waiting for those to come every month and reading them cover to cover and reading about Alaska and some, hunting Dall sheep in Alaska. And that was always kind of the big dream. And I didn't ever really put it to paper until we were at a sales meeting and one of our sales people had an hour and a half long session on goal setting. And she came out and she handed us each a green slip of paper. And she said, "What is that big, hairy, audacious goal that you've always wanted to do, but you've always been afraid to commit to it?" And so that was easy for me. And that what got me thinking about trying to pursue Dall sheep with a bow and arrow. So that was back in 2009. So kind of really got things going then, but I really didn't start archery hunting until I was 43 years old. I knew that once I got into it, I'd be committed. I'd be 100%. And we had 2 young girls at home, and so I wanted to focus on that. And we'd started our business in 2000, so I needed to remain focused on that. And then as the girls grew up and I had a little bit more time on my hands, then I could get more serious and really get into archery, and more specifically bow hunting, which is obviously a very strong passion of mine today, and promoting the sport for others. So
that's an awesome story. And you spoke of archery and that, and your relationship with Archery Country is very strong. And that's actually how we got to know you, both Jake and Brandon. I got to meet you today for the first time, but I have done some research and obviously coming kind of from the same area. I've heard your name quite a few times. So that's a cool story. Jake, I guess you're kind of closer to that level of where Mark is as far as pursuing big game and all game.
Yeah, I haven't got some of the opportunities yet on some of the sheep species. Mark, how you've shot Dall sheep, and I know you've got some others too with the bow, right?
Yeah, I just got my Rocky Mountain Bighorn, Rocky Mountain Desert Bighorn, and the stone sheep. So,
yeah, quite the accomplishment with the bow for sure.
Yeah, it's fun, and it all got started with my older brother Mike. Taking me on fishing trips, taking me on hunting trips, and introducing to the outdoors, right? And it was something we could do together and something we love to do together. So we still do trips every year, and but I think that's the key, is that we get somebody that introduces us and takes the time, it takes the interest to get us out and get us started doing something, and for us it was a lot of duck hunting, and then things just evolved. And I remember I got a picture from a mutual friend, and his name is Bob Miller. He's passed away now, but Bob he went to British Columbia, and he hunted mountain goats with a bow and arrow, and he harvested one. And I remember looking at that picture thinking, how in the world, it's got to be tough enough with a rifle to kill a mountain goat. How do you ever do it with a bow and arrow? How do you close that distance in the alpine? You're above tree line, and make that happen. So I got that picture, and then we had that goal setting meeting at the sales meeting, and at about the same point in time, and that triggered me to really think about this big potential challenge, and that is trying to harvest the Dall sheep, and that's the one I went after first. And so I put together a panel of experts, and seven people that had gone before me, if you will, who had hunted mountain species with a bow and arrow. 6 of the 7 had taken sheep with a bow and arrow. Bob was on that panel. Bob had not taken a sheep at that time, but he had taken the mountain goat. And some guys like Jake Ensign, who was the 17th person to ever harvest all 29 North American big game animals with a bow and arrow. Tom Foss out of Calgary. Tom's harvested, I think at last count, 16 or 17 North American sheep with bow and arrow. Frank Noska, president of the Alaska Bow Hunters Association. Frank is working on his second Super Slam with a bow and arrow. I think he's got like 3 or 4 animals left to take all 29 twice. But so all these guys were on my panel of experts, and I learned a long time ago in business that if you want to get better, you associate yourself with people that are better than you. And so I would contact these guys and set up a time where we could talk. And I really wanted to pick their brain about what's the preparation that a person needs to do in order to get ready to have, one, a great experience, a great adventure, but 2, a reasonable chance of success. And so these guys were instrumental in shortening my learning curve and helping to prepare me to go on my first sheep hunt, which was 2012. And I remember one of the guys said, well, the first thing you do, have you ever hunted mule? You live in the Midwest, so I assume you hunt whitetail. Yeah, sure do. How about mule deer? Have you ever done mule deer? I've done it one time. I said, go do 2 more trips. The best preparation for mountain hunting, mountain bow hunting, is mule deer. Spot and stalk. You're glassing the majority of the time, and then when that animal beds and you think it's in its day bed, then you look at the terrain, you look at the wind, you look at shade, and you stay low and you go slow, and it's amazing what you can do by sneaking in on a critter, employing that. And so that was some of the best advice I got, was to do more mule deer trips and do them spot and stalk. And so we would go to eastern Montana. I think I did 3 trips there. Was fortunate to have some success, and really learned, what you can do on a stalk and what you can get away with, and when you can move, and what you can't get away with. And above all things,
quite the elevation.
Keep an eye out for those does.
Quite the elevation difference from a alpine hunt to eastern Montana mule deer hunt.
Yeah, but the beauty of it is the commonality is it's wide open spaces, right?
Oh, yeah.
And when you first look at it, you think, at least I did. I thought, well, how in the world can you ever kill a mule deer out here? Well, there's a lot of undulations, and there's a lot of low shrubs and bushes and coulees and little canyons and things that you could sneak around in. And so the principles are really exactly the same. But anybody that's thinking about doing some of the mountain alpine hunting, I think that's the place to start. Go out and do some mule deer hunts, and boy, you get educated pretty quick, and it prepares you and prepares your mind for bigger adventures. Yeah.
So Mark, is excuse me, your passion, obviously we got a little taste of that. How many hunts are you going on? And obviously with the draw and different situations, but how many are you averaging per year, nowadays?
Out of state hunts, like this year, I'm going to do 4 out of state hunts. It probably averages that. It probably has averaged that 3 to 4 over the last 10 years.
And what kind of, Mark, you're going after elk, sheep, mule deer, right? I mean, kind of a little bit of everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
What would you say as of like right now, if I put you on the spot, what is your passion? Are you targeting one animal? Obviously the tags that you get, that's where you're going to put your attention at it. But what's your, I guess your high mark hunt right now, or species to hunt?
Well, in terms of species, I'm going to go to Alaska for moose and grizzly this fall, and I leave September 2nd. So that's kind of what's on my mind right now. But my all-time favorite type of hunts are the friends and family hunts, and those are hunts that my brother, his son, my godson Ryan, and a good buddy Jim Lamb from Alexandria here. Those are hunts that we've done, and we've got another one of those planned this fall where we're going to western Nebraska, the Sandhills, for mule deer. And, like most great trips and great adventures, a third of it is the getting together and talking about the planning of it ahead of time. A third of it's doing it. A third of it's, looking at the pictures and telling the great stories and having all the laughs about the fun and funny things that happen on those trips. So those are my all-time favorite ones when you can do it with friends and family. When you're doing sheep, it's you and the guide, and in most of those, because I started bow hunting, midlife, I didn't have enough time to put in for the draws for the tags and sheep hunting is not an old man sport. So I, in Doll sheep, you have to go to Alaska. I guess there's a few in British Columbia, but, and to hunt sheep in Alaska, you have to have a guide. And so on my first trip up there, I was unsuccessful, but the sheep became a real passion. It was really just, if I could just take a Doll sheep with a bow and arrow, that was that was my BHAG. That was the starting point, and got into 52 yards on that first trip to Alaska on a great ram, and all of a sudden felt the wind hit the back of my neck, and I had an arrow on the rest, and I was locked on. We were on final approach, and watching the ram's horns and hoping that he would stand up, and then that wind hit us in the back of the neck, and he took off and stopped at 181 yards, turned around and looked at us, and I never did get a shot opportunity on that trip, but that really kind of planted the seed that I can do this. I can get this done. And again, a lot of that confidence came from spot and stalk mule deer hunting. So I met a friend who's a very good buddy today. I met him on that trip because he hunted. I got in at the camp a couple of days early, so I tagged along with Bill for 2 days. And Bill didn't kill a sheep on that trip, and I didn't kill a sheep on that trip. But the good news is we got a chance to meet. We got a chance to become really good friends, and so we said we're going to do a redemption. We're going to do a redemption hunt. We're going to do a redemption tour. And so we did our research, and we ended up going to the Northwest Territories for Doll sheep, and that we were lucky enough to get in. We booked it right away. Most of these sheep hunts, you got to book 2 to maybe 3 years, sometimes 4 years in advance, because they just don't take many hunters. And especially not all outfitters will take archery hunters because it takes a lot more time. It's a lot more demanding on their crews, but we decided on the Northwest Territories, and that's where actually on that hunt, Bill and I weren't hunting together. We were each one-on-one, but you take five aircraft flights to get into camp, everything from jets to a small commuter jet, and then you're in a Super Cub. And up there, they used to always exclusively use horses, but you can use, a helicopter to chopper you out 90 miles, drop you off with a backpack and 10 days worth of food, and you and your guide just have at it. So, that started it right there, and was fortunate to take a great ram in 2014. And then that really set the wheels turning for me to say, the North American Super Slam has been something on my mind, but it was just like it's too big, it's too time consuming to do all of that. So what do you perceive to be the 4 hardest? And I think most archers would say that the sheep are, I'm not going to say the 4 hardest of the 29, but probably 4 of the hardest 8, if you will, or 9. And so I said, well, I'm gonna get this first Dall sheep, and then I'll take a run at the other ones. And so then the next one up was the stone sheep, and that took me 4 trips to British Columbia to get a stone sheep. 4 trips to get an opportunity to release the first arrow. And
cool. What
it just
I think,
go ahead.
To me, and I don't have the experience there, but I can see it in you in the preparation, because every time you had a sheep hunt coming up, you'd come in here before that hunt and you were in pristine, physical shape. I could tell that you were working hard at it. What does, you're talking 4 trips up there. I mean, what does your average day hunting a sheep like that in that terrain involve? Because I know it's not an easy task. You're not going in the turkey blind and sitting there for hours with a call. I mean, you're putting some miles on.
Yeah. The, you got the good news is, and the season starts late summer, so you've got a ton of daylight, and that allows you to get your glassing in, and especially get your glassing in at first light and last light. And that's where somebody needs to have really, really good optics, because you're going to be behind the glass 9 to 12 hours of the day. You're up at daylight looking for that horizontal back. You're looking for the leg patches especially on stone sheep, because that gives you the coloration differentiation that you're looking for to be able to identify sheep. And then you're trying to find the ram and making that judgment call of he's in the right spot. But they were all backpack hunts, so there was times we got dropped off by a float plane, 2 trips. Another trip we were able to get in via actually 3 trips were float planes, and then one time by ATV, and then you hike. But you got 10 days worth of food, everything you're going to need. So your pack, my pack, I'd always trim in at about 55 pounds, and then you add 2 liters of water to it, get your bow strapped to it. So, you're probably running that 66, 67 pounds when you start. Everything you need has to be there. And so I think that forces a lot of mental preparation for the things that you need, but also the conditioning of your body. And then also, doing everything you can to prepare yourself for that one-shot opportunity. And so my one-shot opportunity on stone sheep came on day 44. And
that's incredible.
Wait. You just said 44?
Day 44, yeah, it was the 4th trip, and I never got a shot before. We were close to rams, but for one thing or another, it just wouldn't come together. And so, I'd go back again and just, we usually go into a different area, and it was a great area. We're seeing sheep every day. We're seeing rams every day, but then you got to, you're looking for that 80-year-old man, and there's just not a ton of them. Essentially that's what, you're looking for a old male, mature ram that is, at his prime, but, probably would die of natural causes, within 2 to 3 years. So that's the animal you're trying to target.
Yeah. And I think just for people listening, Mark, I'm sure you could have shot some with a rifle, but you were that committed to just doing it with a bow, and that's why it took you to 44 days. Am I correct?
That's correct. Yeah. Yep.
So I go ahead. Sorry, Mark.
No, I had on my first stone sheep hunt, it was a great ram, probably a 163, which would be, in the top 25 Pope and Young all time. At 194 yards, the guy's sitting right next to me with his rifle, and he asked me, he said, "Do you want to do it?" I said, "No, I'm going to get him with a bow and arrow." And then, they started to come up the mountain to the very top, and we made a call to move, and 2 of the 4 rams came over the top and dropped in our lap at 25 yards, but the big boy never came. He was last in line, which isn't unusual for a band of rams. The old smart, patriarch, he comes last. He lets his 5 and 6-year-old buddies go out front and run interference for him. It just came close, but that was just a giant stone sheep, and it came close. We watched him for 4 hours from 224 yards to 194 yards. And then, I'm sure he was within 50 yards of me, but I couldn't see him because he was down over the side of the mountain. It just never came up. His buddies got a little nervous, and then they ended up busting us, and you're starting over again. And we hunted that ram for 6 more days. We never did see him again.
Mark, if you don't mind, can you take us through day 44, like when it all happened, and what you were thinking and how it all went down?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that I learned early on was the mental side of it, and that's where a lot of people probably come up short, is they don't go in with the right mindset. But I guess playing athletics my whole life and starting 3 businesses, you're used to the odds being stacked against you, and so I think your mental state of mind and toughness is key. And so, I tell myself every morning, today's the day I'm going to kill my ram, and it's going to happen. And I'm in an incredible part of the world, and it's gorgeous. It's wilderness. It's true wilderness. It's not a Disney movie. It is. This is real, and I'm lucky and fortunate to be in that spot. So, but today's the day it's going to happen. And so on that particular day, there were 4 rams, 9 sheep total. And we found them in the morning, and we watched them. They were bedded in a spot that we didn't like, and the winds are always swirling in the mountains, so you're never quite sure there. But I didn't like the winds the way it was set up. So we waited, and they rebedded, and at 7:00 we had snuck in, and it was kind of like a landmine. We navigated in through the 8 other sheep. We got lucky, and I still don't. You got to be lucky. You got to be lucky in life, but I'm still not sure exactly how it all came together. That the fact that we were able to sneak in between those 8 other sheep, and we found him via a cloud of bugs. And what I mean by that is, in British Columbia and the territories and the Yukon and Alaska, we think we have mosquitoes in Minnesota. We don't even have mosquitoes compared to what they have up there. So, we were sitting there wearing head nets, and you got DEET on, 90% DEET on, which lasts about 30 minutes. But there was a swarm of bugs. We knew he had bedded near this prominent rock, and then there was a swarm of bugs. And my guide and a good buddy now, Kent McKenzie, said, "Mark, I found the ram. He's right there." And at this juncture, we were about 45 yards from him, and you could see this swarm of bugs that was hovering over this animal. And then Kent stood up, and he could see the horns, and then we verified, yeah, that was him. That was the ram we were going after. And we had nicknamed him Wide Load. Not that he was a giant ram. He was an old, mature ram, but really flared, really wide, and so he was super easy to identify. And so then we snuck into 26 yards and waited for him to stand, and we knew he was going to go to feed. He was laying up in the rocks, and so we snuck in the rocks above him, which I think is really critical, especially on sheep. And I always feel like I can get a ram killed if I'm up above him, coming in on top, because rams and mountain goats, they think they're the baddest thing on the mountain, and nothing can get above them, right? Well, if you can figure out a way to get above them, then you've got a pretty good chance of being able to sneak in. And so we just sat on him for what seemed like an eternity, and finally he stood up and started to walk, and there was my shot at 26 yards, and Kent, my buddy, got the whole thing on video on his iPhone.
I was on the tip of or edge of my chair there for a bit. So let's sidetrack, because I could listen to you talk. It's kind of like listening to Sam Elliott, about hunting. And this is the easiest podcast we probably had or doing, because of what the way you're talking and through it. But sidetrack just a bit, if you wouldn't mind going to your relationship with Archery Country and the two guys that I'm sitting with, and not doing a selfish plug, but just the importance of finding a good shop, and then your history here.
Yeah, well, I had a friend recommend Archery Country, so I stopped in at Waite Park and met Brandon. I don't think I met you, Jake, the first couple of trips, but met Brandon and described to him, what I like. I like the aluminum bows. I like a heavy bow, especially in potentially longer shot situations, which any of your Western hunting or your mountain hunting, you have to be prepared for a longer shot, say 40 yards, 50 yards, 60 yards, something like that. And Brandon's, I don't know how he does it, but when I tell him I want to come in and shoot a bow, he's got it set up and it's tuned to me already. And he and I are about the same size, so that helps out a lot. But I think there's only been one bow out of 9 or 10 bows, Brandon, that
it's been at least
I
that
bought
many
from you that didn't paper tune the first time that I shot it through paper. You remember that?
Yep.
There's only been one. There's only been one bow.
Yep. I think that's about right.
So, so much of it is about eliminating variables in life, and in bow hunting, that's especially true because there's so many things that can go wrong. Whether you're whitetail hunting, or you're doing some Western or mountain hunts, and you have to eliminate the variables. And so this is one huge confidence builder for me, is that I just know when Brandon and John and Jake's crew set up a bow, it's dialed in and it's in tune, and I can take it home and I can shoot my fixed blade broadheads, and they're just going to shoot, and so it's all about building that confidence. And the whole package together makes it confidence feeds off confidence, right? And so that's how I found you guys, or I guess more importantly why I just keep coming back like a stray dog. When he gets hungry, he comes home every night, and I usually go home with a new bow. I don't know how that happens, Brandon, but
yeah, no, and we appreciate that too. And I think part of it is that all of us live to hunt and love shooting our bows and love, and know how rare those experiences are, where you get everything to line up in front of you. And, we want to make sure everything's right because, in this business, we don't get a do-over if we don't get one right either. Because if you're out on a sheep hunt and something we did that makes it not work,
right,
that's a big mistake. So we do take that, we take it to heart and take it serious, and and are lucky to have guys like you and all the other customers that'll put that trust in us too.
Right.
We have a lot of listeners that absolutely love listening about setups. So do we have, Brandon, I guess I'm asking you and Mark, is he set up for this year already?
Yeah.
So
we got
Mark, if you wouldn't, just kind of tell us a brief description or go into detail however you want. What's your setup this year?
Yeah. Well, it usually starts, when the manufacturers release their new bows. Some do it at various times, but it's almost always January when I get a hold of Brandon. I say, Brandon, I want to come and shoot a variety of bows. And that first trip, just kind of, I'll usually shoot a Matthews and a Hoyt for sure, and sometimes a Bowtech, and just let the bow pick me. Right? It's not like a gun. You got to let the bow pick you, and which one feels the best and just sets up the best. And then the second time around, Brandon will have it set up for my draw length, which is all documented, so it makes it really easy. I just called Brandon. I said, hey, I want you to set up a Hoyt Axis Ultra, which even at, I don't know what I am, like 4'7", Brandon. I'm not very tall, but I like a 34-inch ATA. And with some of the new cam systems, you can get the right nose, the string angle for the nose contact, on 30 or 31 ATAs, and something with a pretty big brace height, and that's a 6 3/4 inch. So Brandon sets it up. I come in and shoot it, and it's already paper tuned, and that makes it easy. And then, I get to go home and go through the process of really getting to know that bow, which for me takes, probably 30 trips to the range to really know if I can get stable. And a little regiment, one of the guys on my panel of experts said, get to a point where the first thing you do is you go to 80 yards and you shoot that first arrow. No warm up, nothing. That's where you're going to put all the chips on the table, and you're going to find out if you can shoot that bow under a pressure situation. And so that's how I start off my practice sessions, is just that first arrow at 80. And then I know what I got, because that's how it's going to be, whether you're sitting in a whitetail stand and you get that opportunity at a buck you've been after all season, or maybe multiple seasons, you only get that one chance. And so it's got to be right. But it all starts with, being confident and comfortable in your equipment. And especially in archery, it's more important who's the technician behind it, that you have confidence in that. So I know I can call Brandon or John and say, hey, set up a bow for me, and it's ready to go. It's fun.
Yeah, and I think like some of the things you are talking about there, and we've touched on this on some of our other podcasts, is the preparation and confidence. You are 44 days in, and now you have a ram that you're sitting on at 26 yards, and you're probably pretty sure you're going to make that shot, and it's, all those things come together that you feel 100% you are going to make that shot. And even though 26 yards maybe isn't the longest shot, you're 44 days in, and being comfortable in your equipment and knowing it shoots well and it's tuned well, and it was durable enough to hold up through, all those grueling hunts and walks in to finally make that one opportunity count.
Yeah. And it starts with your equipment, and then it moves right into your practice and your practice regimens. And so I don't shoot every day, but I do shoot probably 300 different times per year. Some days I'll go shoot 2 or 3 times. I have a 18 arrow maximum that I'll ever shoot. I'll never shoot more than that at one practice round, because of fatigue and the bad habits can start coming in. But, it's all about delivering that first accurate, lethal arrow, because that's all you can ask for, is one opportunity. If you get that one opportunity, you got to make it happen.
Yeah, and I think I think having a goal in mind for what you want to get to, it helps with that practice routine, and set yourself up for, how do I get there? If it's, I want to put that one arrow in at 80 yards on my first shot. I want to be able to shoot, a 300 at Vegas. I want to be able to, shoot 25 yards at a deer out of my deer stand, the first arrow. I think having a goal on what you're preparing to really can help you come up with a plan too. And I think that's one of the things that makes our job easy with Mark too. Because he comes in, he's ready, he's in shooting shape.
Mm-hmm. And he knows what he wants.
And he knows what he wants,
Yep.
So it makes he's kind of saying we're doing our job, but I can tell you on the other side of the counter, when the customer comes in, lets us know exactly what he wants and has a plan and is in shooting shape and physically, can come in, shoot good arrows. It's easier for us to get that equipment to that point too.
Yep.
And being a gadget guru, did he go with the Hoyt Axios Ultra?
Yep. Well, and Mark, what do you have, 3 bows right now?
2,
3?
No, I have 3 that are set up exactly the same. I always take 2 on the adventure hunts, if you will, because sometimes you can, like in British Columbia, get bucked off a horse and land on it. And I actually broke part of the bow and had to ride back and get my backup bow. But the bows are set up exactly the same. But I've got 5 or 6 bows right now, and basically they're all set up the same. But the 2 that I take on the trip are the 2 that I have the most confidence in. My primary and then the backup, and you hope that you never have to use the backup. But it's like a lot of things in life. Pray for the best and prepare for the worst, and sometimes you got to go to that backup, and that's why. Yeah, I mean, if we go to South Dakota whitetail hunting, I'm taking 2 bows. If we're going to when we go to the Sand Hills this year in Nebraska, I'll take 2 bows. All of my other out-of-state hunts, I'm always taking 2 bows, 3 releases. You just got to have your backup plan in place and be prepared.
Yeah, and I know for myself too, I think everybody thinks of like the catastrophic failure of taking your backup bow up. I've been on trips before where halfway through the hunt, I pull my bow out and it's shooting and it's hitting 2 inches off, and I just pick my other bow up. I don't sit and try to figure out, what's wrong with this, what's going on, because then all of a sudden, even if you adjust it back, in the back of your mind, you don't have the confidence you had before. At least if you have that backup bow, you just put it down. I'll figure it out when I get home, pick it up, shoot a bullseye with that one, and you're off to it again, and with the confidence.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And, I don't know the difference between a hammer and a screwdriver, so I can't fix anything. So that's where I need the Brandons and the Johns of the world to get me set up. And anytime I've had to go to a backup bow on a trip, it's not because the bow failed. It's because, like the time I got bucked off a horse, or another time I fell coming down a scree slide and broke the rest. Well, those aren't mechanical failures. Those are things that just happen because of the physical demanding presence of the environment that you happen to be in. And so, knock on wood, I've never had a bow failure. It's just, something happens out of your control, and that's why you got to have the confidence that you can go right to that backup bow and you're fine. And I always backpack a little target. It's called a grizzly target, and they're made up in Alberta. And so every morning when I get up, the first thing I do is eat breakfast. Second thing is I'll shoot 3 or 4 arrows at 30 yards, 40 yards. And then, it just builds confidence for that day. It just continues to build. It's all, it all starts with the foundation with having confidence in your equipment and the fact that it's tuned and the arrows are going to fly right. But then building that daily confidence every morning is really key. And, it weighs 1.8 pounds, and that's an extra 1.8 that I got to backpack around the mountains. But it's so worth it because of the confidence that it gives you every morning.
Yeah, absolutely. That peace of mind and that, archery is a confidence game, 100%. Before you let it go, if you're wondering if it's going to hit, it's probably not going to hit. If you know it's going to hit, you're in good shape, So I agree with you 100%. I thought it was interesting too here talking to you, Mark, and I think for all of us, and especially going through the times we're going through with COVID and a lot of other activities people aren't able to do, the importance of family and doing this with your families and friends and sharing that passion. And I think all of us here, do the same thing. It's one of the main connectors in a lot of our lives is to our close friends and family is hunting, and hunting as a group, not just by yourself on a mountain out in the middle of nowhere. It's just the bonds you can create with that, the time you have your kids and your family want to do stuff with you, I think is one of the coolest things about the sport. And I know you and your family and all of us guys here kind of go about it.
Yeah, without any question. It's great to go to Alaska and to go to the north and have those hunts, but the bad thing is you're traveling alone in most situations. You may or may not know your guide anymore. I am usually hunting with guides that are friends of mine, and I've met them through the Pope and Young Club or Bow Site, an online bow hunting forum, and they become friends. But as I said earlier, my favorite trips are these, like, we're going to go run out to the sand hills and there's 4 of us, and there's text messages going around right now, who's bringing what and whose truck are we taking and what day are we leaving, and flipping each other grief, back and forth. And every day then we come back together in a little trailer house, and everybody's telling their story from the day, right? And so, you got like 2 hours of great stories that are going to happen, whether somebody was able to get a shot or kill that buck, or the rattlesnake they almost stepped on, or the flat tire they got from the cactus, or, it's just, that's what it's all about. You're having a great meal together and maybe a cold beverage, and, you get up the next morning and you're going to go out and have a great adventure, and you're all going to be able to get together and swap those stories again that next night. And so those are the funnest ones, and that's really where it's at, and that's really what got us to start the archery program here in Alexandria, and the high school archery team that competes, is that it's lifelong, it's outdoors, and it's family. There's not a ton of things in life that are that way that you can do. And so that's what really kind of motivated a group of us to get this archery program going, and introduce a lot of our young people to it here in Alexandria area, and so that they can enjoy some of the things that we've been able to enjoy over these years, and these great trips that you get to plan, and the challenge of it, and the odds are stacked against you because you got to get to 30 yards on that animal, but at the same point in time, you keep working at it. You just keep getting better and better and better. You don't always realize that you are getting better, but you get to go out and do it with family and friends. And like I said, my brother Mike introduced me to the great outdoors at a very early age, and he and I we're still doing these trips, and he's 71, and we got him a crossbow, and we didn't know anything about a crossbow. So who did I call? I called Brandon. I said, Brandon, it's time to get Mike a crossbow. He's ready. He's finally got it in his head that's what he needs to do. And we came in and got him set up, and he's killed 2 deer with it now in 2 years, and he's like and he killed a great bull elk. He killed a 326 bull elk at 37 yards in New Mexico 3 years ago. Yeah, it was the very first year we got it, and you thought he was as confident as a 18-year-old MVP, right?
Hey, Mark, real quick, just what you're talking about with family and friends. We'll bring it back to Minnesota a little bit. I know you got your own piece of ground that you have food plots, and you got it set up really nice, but your buddy Jim that you mentioned a few times, he shot a great buck a few years back on your property. Want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, when you invite your buddy to come hunt with you, and as I did to Jim that day, and he goes, "Yeah, I'm all in." And then he texted back. He said, "No, I'm not gonna make it because Jackie," and his daughter was 17 at the time, and she was just starting bow hunting, and she was going to bow hunt near home, but she didn't like to walk out in the dark. And so he says, "I'm going to hunt it down here at home with Jackie." I said, "Oh, okay." And then all of a sudden I got the phone rang and it was him. And he goes, "Hey, Jackie's going to study, so I'm available. Is it too late?" I said, "No, I'll put you in the stand. I was going to hunt tonight." So I put him in the stand, and this buck comes in chasing this doe. It was November 2nd. And I remember getting the text at 5:11 p.m. I just shot. And the first shot, Jim missed this deer. He came in at a really goofy angle, but the buck was so wound up on this doe that he stopped at 36 yards. Jim reloaded and killed a 194 gross, green gross, non-typical. And 319 pounds live weight. We weighed him on our buddy's certified meat scale at a locker room. Yeah, we couldn't believe it, and that's the kind of thing, that's a once in a lifetime deer for all of us. But to have done that together, and like, I'll send him that picture of he and I with that deer, I don't know, 10 or 12 times a year. No comment, just send him the picture, right? And we get to go back and relive those memories and the great time. And, those guys are up there helping me plant food plots, put in this irrigation system. Every year there's this big checklist of things that we've got to do and got to get done. And this year we tried fencing off some beans. So we've got 1.4 acres that are underneath fence, and it's doing fantastic. And so we're already talking about, upping our game next year on more behind the fence, because, the deer depredation is just so hard on the beans that you gotta do that. But yeah, you just never know. And so you put your buddy in the stand you were going to hunt that night, and he ends up killing a once in a lifetime deer. At least I've always got that to hang over his head.
Right, exactly.
You can get him out to come help with food plots anytime.
Exactly. Yeah. Anything, cutting trees, doing timber stand improvement, whatever it is, he's all in. And that's where some of those, friends and family, nothing's better than that. And that's those are the best hunts for sure.
As far as if you were to give, and I consider you a pro, and if you look up at your resume, that's what you may not say that you are, but if there was one pro tip that you could give anybody for their fall adventure, it could be hunting a whitetail buck that they have trail cameras, or going on a sheep hunt or elk hunt, or anything that their adventure is set on, what would be your one pro tip?
Well, you must have a pretty loose definition of the word pro, Wade, but I think the main thing is it's just like with any sport. And if anybody out there has read the book by Malcolm Baldrige called The Outlier, he's got a chapter in there. It's a rule of 10,000. And I didn't think about it until I read his book, and I got to that chapter. And the concept is, you can't become really good at anything until you've done it at least 10,000 times. And, there's so many analogies between golf and archery, in that it has to be committed to mental or muscle memory, right? You can't be thinking about all the little steps, because there's too many little steps that the human mind can't think about that many things. So to answer your question, to me, it definitely is shoot that bow a whole bunch of times. Don't pick it up July 1st, getting ready for September, October, November, even though that can be successful. But have a situation where you can shoot, even if it's on your driveway, shooting at 20 yards, where you got a good, safe environment, safe backstop. Go out and shoot those 10 to 12, 15 arrows 3, 4, 5 times a week. It just builds muscle memory, which builds confidence. And, that's kind of been a theme here, I think, that today on you got to be ready, and you got to be confident when that shot opportunity arises. And if there's any questions in the back of your mind what the outcome is going to be, well, it's probably not the outcome you want.
Yeah, and I think, on that same line there, I see it more and more as the technology has gotten better, where people think they can get away with practicing a little less because they can come in and shoot, shoot fairly well, 20 yards, no problem. Well, that's, no pressure. Things are happening at your pace. And that's not how it happens when you're hunting, so having that muscle memory and not having to think about anything is a big key to making it happen when it's crunch time, not when it's on your time frame.
Yeah, and we've talked about that a few times, trying to add pressure onto your shooting. Is there something that you do, Mark, whether you're shooting against some buddies or if you're at home, is there something that you try to do to prepare your mind while you're practicing for that, that hunting opportunity shot?
Yeah, I think the more distractions you can have while you're shooting, this is I guess at a point where you've become fairly proficient. So Jim and I will shoot together at least once a week, and somebody may be talking while one guy's shooting, and that's not by accident. That's by design, to try and throw challenges at the shooter so that you can stay focused and mentally sharp at the mission at hand, and that's delivering one accurate, lethal arrow. And so we compete against each other and have shoot-offs, and it's fun. And invariably, we end up having a couple of bush lattes afterwards. And maybe Jim won tonight. Maybe I won 2 days ago. But it's having fun together. But at the same point in time, putting pressure on each other. And again, we always start at 80 yards. There is no warm up. And if you shot arrows earlier that day, we tell each other, hey, just a little disclosure, I slipped out at noon today and I shot 10 arrows, so I have shot today. But usually we try and go into those things just cold turkey and let's see how that first arrow goes. And, there's times where we don't shoot any other distances. We'll just shoot at 80 because we know if we can make it happen at 80, we can make it happen on a whitetail at 26,
Right.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. And having that buddy to push you is a nice thing. I really appreciate you getting on the phone today, Mark. I think, one of the things we wanted to do is not just, showcase people from all over the country, but people that are actually accomplishing some really big things in archery local. And I, out of hunting community with a bow, I don't think there's too many people that can hold a candle in the wind to what Mark's done with sheep hunting with his bow to be able to accomplish that and get that done. So I really appreciate you getting on the phone today, kind of telling your story, and hopefully we'll see you in here with a big mule deer and some other stories from this
grizzly
fall.
Bear.
Yeah, and a grizzly bear.
Yeah, well, it'll be a fun fall for sure. And Brandon, I'll be in touch. I'm planning on coming down a day next week, and we'll do a final tune on the bows, and I need to pick up some more arrows too. So
yeah, right on.
Good. All right, guys.
We appreciate it, Mark, and on behalf of Jake and Brandon, this has been Archery Country Podcast. We'll see you down the road.
Thank you for listening to Archery Country Podcast.